Hello, and welcome to this episode of Marvel Crisis Protocol Declassified. I'm your host, Andy, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co host, Nikki. Good morning, Nikki.
Good morning, Andy.
How are you doing on this lovely morning?
I am doing great. I am so glad it's Saturday.
It seems like it's been a week,
It has. I crawled across that finish line.
but luckily, we've had this video to work on, and this has actually been a lot of fun to do.
One of my favorites, if not the favorite.
So far, I would say 100%.
I'm just giddy about this character.
And let's talk a little bit about how we chose him for the next topic of our MCP Declassified. So, about a week and a half ago, we put up a poll on YouTube to ask our viewers who would like to see as our next Declassified video. We had Beta Ray Bill, Ulick, Spider Woman, and Agent Venom, and coming in at a resounding number one was Beta Ray Bill.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised until I started looking into him and realized he's got quite a following.
We realized when we saw that he was number one and kind of started seeing some of the comments people were saying about him, not just in the poll, but online in various sources, he's got a very dedicated fan base. So this was one of those things you've got to get right.
Yes, exactly. So he was created by Walter Simonson. First issue was Thor number 337.
Back in August of 1983. So he's about 40 years old now. Congratulations, Bill. He is a cybernetically altered Corbinite, which means that horse feature of him is not natural. It's actually the cybernetic body of a flesh-eating horse-like creature from their planet, right?
Yes. So, at first he was just a regular Corbinite. His people chose him to be their champion. Their planet was going to be destroyed
by Surtur, of all people. So the classic villain from Thor, and as many people probably saw, Thor Ragnarok, the movie, he was created as a champion from his people. He was augmented as a teenager, brought into this and turned into kind of a protector. And like I said, given this cyborg form that would strike fear into the people who were trying to harm them. The planet ended up being destroyed, and evidently quite a few people still died, even though the Corbinites did escape from the planet, as we'll find out later on in other stories.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things about Beta Ray Bill is his ship.
Scuttlebutt.
I love his ship.
The name alone is just beautiful. Yes, Scuttlebutt. It's tied very directly to Beta Ray Bill. Again, not in the originals, but as they've gone back and looked at his history, the AI of Scuttlebutt, more specifically. Scuttlebutt is the actual spaceship, but it's got an artificial intelligence, and that is what's kind of bonded with Beta Ray Bill. It's his partner in crime when they go out adventuring in the galaxy, and actually becomes much more in later stories.
So as they're escaping their planet, Bill runs into Thor.
Right. So they're escaping. They hit the Milky Way galaxy. Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. detected this alien ship coming in. They then sent Thor to investigate it. And that's when Thor and Beta Ray ended up having their first altercation. What's really interesting about this fight, Thor threw his hammer at Beta Ray Bill, and Bill caught it.
I don't think it was thrown. I think that Beta Ray Bill, they were fighting and Thor dropped it, turned into
Donald. And picked it up. That's right.
Yeah, he turned into Donald Blake, and Beta Ray Bill's like, "Oh, what's this?" and picked it up, and yeah, got the powers of Thor.
This is back in the day when Thor and Donald Blake were intertwined with each other. Mm-hmm. Donald Blake actually being another personality, or actually a separate entity of Thor. So yeah, if he was not holding his hammer for over a minute, he would transfer back from Thor into Donald. And that's when Beta Ray Bill took the hammer as a prize. Ultimately, that led them back to Asgard. And Odin was making judgment based off of the fight and who would keep the hammer. So he decided the only fair way to do this was to have a battle to the death. And he sent both Beta Ray Bill and Thor to Muspelheim to fight it out. In the end, Beta Ray Bill did actually win that fight. It was a little rigged because Muspelheim is a fiery land, and Thor being mortal of flesh and blood was getting worn out by the intense heat, whereas Beta Ray Bill was a cyborg.
Right, but also his home planet was hot, right?
Yes,
And
so he was
fiery.
used to the heat.
He
So
was used to the heat,
it was really stacked against Thor.
which is kind of what Odin wanted, right?
Exactly. Because
So in the end, Beta Ray Bill spared Thor's life. He didn't want to kill him, and I think that's kind of what.
what Odin was looking for from the, all intents and purposes, he was going to see if he truly was worthy of the hammer. And while he didn't end up winning Mjolnir, he did get his own hammer, Stormbreaker, which is the same hammer that a lot of people saw movie Avengers Endgame. That's the same weapon Thor is wielding at the end of that.
Yeah, so really cool. This is really neat. This was kind of groundbreaking for Thor. Somebody else picked up the hammer, became Thor. Like he had the red cape and all that. So this is really interesting for that time.
And that's exactly, yeah. So yeah, two things were canon from, or created for canon from that fight. The fact that he picked up the hammer, he was the very first one in comics to do it. He was the very first person to be chosen worthy of Mjolnir, other than, and I know I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sorry, other than Thor. And then it was also stated that whoever picked up the hammer and got the enchantment would get the Thor armor. So that's why he's got the wing helmet and everything, just like Thor.
There you go.
So one last little factoid, Nikki. Did you know that what Beta Ray Bill's real name is?
Bill.
Just Bill. Why is it just Bill?
Um, I think when I was reading, I think it was in this interview of Walter Simonson, in one of, I think it was the latest Beta Ray Bill comic.
Right. We'll get to that one in a little bit.
There is an interview from this latest writer of Walter Simonson, and he said he created Beta Ray Bill was just going to be, he wanted him to be like an average guy. So
we just got Bill.
So we just got Bill, and I think that's really perfect. I think that maybe that might be why he has such a following. People can really relate to him in a lot of ways not.
Right.
But the fact that he's Thor like, not.
Right.
But the fact that he has he suffered and he wants to belong. Some of his stories I read are just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So I think that people really want him to, they root for him.
Exactly. And that's something that we will be talking a little bit more about as we talk about the comics. We'll also explain where Beta Ray comes from. We'll leave that for just a little bit later, but that is a significant name for his character as well. But that really doesn't come into play until actually the first part of the trilogy series we're about to talk about.
Okay. Actually, Andy, it's not really a trilogy per se. This is something that you and I have decided that these three stories are what we wanted to focus on today, because it really encapsulated his character. At least we thought.
Right. This is the trilogy, or three sets of complete stories. These aren't three books. These are three complete stories, starting with Stormbreaker, the saga of Beta Ray Bill. Then that leads to Beta Ray Bill, God Hunter, and finally Beta Ray Bill Volume 1, which is actually from 2021.
Yes, and Beta Ray Bill is in a lot of content out there. One of my favorites is The Unworthy Thor. I love his character in that. I love Thor and Bill's brotherhood in that and how they're there for each other. But we don't have time to cover every single thing we like.
Right.
So we're going to talk about these three stories, mention a few other things.
Mention a few others. So absolutely. So starting with Stormbreaker, the main premise of Stormbreaker is, first of all, Ragnarok has just happened, and it's technically the end. Asgard, as we know it, is gone, and pretty much all the Asgardians are dead or dying and on their way to Valhalla.
Yes, Thor sends Beta Ray Bill. He says, go back to your people. We need someone to remember us. And so Bill leaves just heartbroken. He wants to stay. He wants to be there for Thor, and he doesn't know if Thor is going to survive, but he goes.
He goes, and only to find out that his people are being attacked by Galactus.
Yes.
And his herald, Stardust.
Yes.
And they are basically getting wiped out by these two for obvious reasons. I mean, he's a cosmic threat.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Corbinites had decided that they were a little mad at Bill for being in Asgard, and they had decided to bring back Alpha Ray.
Alpha Ray. So how is that significant? What's the difference between
Well,
Alpha
that
Ray?
was like the first bill. It was like the first attempt at a champion.
Right.
Did not go well for them.
Not well at all.
He's insane. He's crazy.
Little
he
homicidal.
doesn't think outside the box. So Galactus comes along, and Alpha Ray is supposed to protect them. Well, here comes Bill. Instead of them teaming up like you assume, Alpha Ray attacks Beta Ray Bill.
Right. Now, Beta Ray does get a good gets a good hit on Galactus.
Yes.
Before that happens, and Stardust is ticked.
Yes.
But needless to say, that fight erupts. All heck breaks loose. I think the only thing that's really important, really to discuss about that before, is the Meta Orb. So the Meta Orb is a failsafe for the people of Corbinite. It's a way all their souls were basically removed from their bodies and placed in this orb. 80% of the population. The rest of the 20% is on this fleet that's trying to escape. That's pretty much all been annihilated by this point. So all the population, all the living Corbinites in the galaxy are in this orb in spirit form. Bill is doing his best to safeguard it, and Stardust is kind of exploiting that. He ends up opening up this portal to cosmic hell, and then is shocked to find out a demon escapes and totally blames Bill for that.
That was hilarious. Like, what'd you do?
Well, why did you let that happen? I know it's going a little too much into it, but that was the funniest part of the story, when Stardust gets ticked at Bill for letting a demon escape from the portal that Stardust created.
Yes.
So that...
And Bill is just desperate to save this orb. I mean, he's lost everything. He's, Asgard, now his people, who he probably feels a little guilty that he wasn't there for them the whole time.
He feels like he abandoned them.
Yeah.
And he's lost 2 people at this point, the Asgardians.
So he's just devastated at this point.
The story ultimately comes to a conclusion when the demon that got out, Astaroth, which is really inconsequential other than the fact that she was nigh invincible, is thrown back in, and they close the portal to this cosmic hell, only to find out an entity escaped other than Astaroth and hid itself in the orb. And ultimately, you find out that being is the old Corbinite god who calls itself Omega Ray. And he kind of looks like this demonic version of Beta Ray. They have it out, they fight, and ultimately gets transported back to Earth after a series of fights that take them from a now fully destroyed Asgard onto Earth.
And interesting enough, wasn't it Alpha Ray who saved the day?
He did save the day. He's the one that... He was destroyed kind of when he attacked Beta Ray Bill. Galactus brought it back to life and then used it to trap Astaroth back in the demon hell, basically.
Okay, all right.
And so that's it. Beta Ray Bill is on Earth. His people are gone. The orb is gone. So he is the last Corbinite in the galaxy.
And he woke up on Earth
in a human form.
In a human form, a veteran,
an army vet
that was homeless.
Yes.
And somehow, were you like, what happened?
That was so disorienting.
Yeah. I was like, did I miss something? I actually started going back and like seeing if I accidentally
picked the wrong comic.
Yes,
because it's Spider-Man and Boar-Man fighting, and these 2 humans that are all disoriented. It's basically Omega Ray and Beta Ray in humans. That was just so weird.
So it ends there, and then the next, to us, significant story, and it really kind of just picks right up.
Yes.
It was a few years after this, in real time. God Hunter.
Yep, it was a pretty short. That first one was 6 issues. This is only 3.
This is only 3, but it's really good. And basically, it's Beta Ray Bill getting revenge, or trying to get revenge on Galactus.
Right. And I think the fact that what happens during the story is good. There's no doubt about it. It's very good. But really, what this story is about is Beta Ray Bill becoming unworthy.
Yes. Yeah, he is consumed. If I remember correctly, he and Thor are in the beginning, and Thor is telling him, like, this is not a good idea, buddy.
This is not what Stormbreaker was designed to do.
Exactly. And Beta Ray Bill's like, I have to do this. I have to make sure that he never does this to any other people again. And so his big plan is that he is going to make sure that Galactus is never able to eat another planet.
He's going to kill him, basically.
And he's going to kill the planet. And he tries this planet, this one in particular, and I can't remember what the people are called.
And that's really inconsequential as far
it is. But he tries to get them to leave the planet. This is the planet that Galactus is about ready to eat. And they're like, no, we're going to stay and fight. He's like, please leave. He tricks them. He basically gives them a plague.
A plague, yeah.
And he says, I have the cure, but you have to leave your planet first. And they are furious. But they leave, and, Bill destroys the planet.
Right. But before he does that, he goes back to his ship, and he puts his hammer down. And when he tries to lift it again, he can't lift it again.
He can't lift his hammer. So he's all of a sudden, he's unworthy.
Right. So he ends up deciding he's still going to go after Galactus himself. The people that he saved, turns out they weren't the pacifists at the beginning of the story that we all thought. They were a warmongering species that literally lobotomized themselves to be peaceful and then reverted back to their war state to destroy Galactus. And
wow, that was going all out right there.
I mean, that's committing to the whole thing. And they were going to kill it. Now, there's another caveat that Galactus had been captured by another cosmic entity in another series. He was already starving. He was already weak in state.
And you can kind of see that.
He looks
he doesn't
desiccated.
Look good.
Yeah,
he doesn't look good.
So they will kill him. Even Beta Ray could have killed him at this point. And Silver Surfer convinces Beta Ray to save Galactus for a multitude of reasons. But the biggest reason, because it's the right thing to do. That destroying Galactus is not going to get him the revenge or peace of mind he thought it would.
Yeah, and I really feel like he came to his senses. He was just enraged for a while, came to his senses, and he's worthy again.
Right, and at the end, as a kind of a thank you, Galactus brought back one of the female Corbinites, T-Rasha Ray, I believe is her name, and they were supposed to be mates. They were supposed to repopulate. They were the Adam and Eve, if you will, of the story. Unfortunately, that did not work out. And while she's still around, they are not at all. There's no romance between the two of them.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder: is it because of Lady Sif?
Could be. Could be.
Okay, so that brings us to our last one, Beta Ray Bill, Volume 1. There's 5 issues, written by Daniel Warren Johnson, also penciled and inked by him. And this, oh my gosh, Andy, how good was this? And it's so good that I'm going to say, if you haven't read it, go read it. And then come back and listen to us gush about it, because we're going to talk about some spoilers.
Yeah, so it was phenomenal. It starts out, this is the... Do you remember how the Incredible Hulk, the original TV series, had that stupid ending song that every time he was still kind of on his journey, it played? It was always super sad.
Yes.
That's what this series is like. It is that song and Beta Ray Bill's journey through it.
But it is also
phenomenal.
It is hilarious. It's funny. It's heartbreaking. It's heartfelt. The friendships and everything else. Oh my God, it's so good.
Right. We're going to try to get through this quickly because, again, we could talk about this one for hours.
We could.
But the big thing is, at the beginning, Asgard is under attack from Fin Fang Foom, who is enveloped in a symbiote because this is during the King in Black era. Beta Ray Bill has rallied the troops with Lady Sif, and they're trying to attack it, but aren't doing anything. I mean, this is...
And Beta Ray Bill does not have Stormbreaker.
Correct. Stormbreaker has been destroyed by Thor on accident.
Yes.
That was during a fight he and Beta Ray Bill had over Thor being a herald of Galactus. That's another story. Again, worth talking about, but not this time.
Yes, but this is significant. He doesn't have Stormbreaker. He is having trouble defeating Fin Fang Foom. Thor comes and easily does it.
Wipes him out.
Yes, and Asgard is cheering on Thor, and Thor even says to Beta Ray, like, really? You couldn't do that?
I thought you beat him in the past. Why are you having so much trouble now? Not realizing the symbiote was, it's super enhancing this dragon creature already.
Meanwhile, Lady Sif is like, I support you, Bill. She's being supportive. She's being flirty. There is something going on between them. I'm for it. I'm like, yeah, let's see what happens. So they actually make it into Lady Sif's bedroom. Things are heating up, and all of a sudden, Lady Sif is like,
So how does this work?
So how does this work? You know,
And-
and Beta Ray is like, what do you mean? Things were going great. And she's like, well, don't you turn into your humanoid form at night? And he's like, I can't. I don't have Stormbreaker anymore.
That was a power Stormbreaker.
And there was an awkward silence. Lady Sif goes, oh. So Beta Ray Bill is absolutely devastated. He looks in the mirror and he's like, I understand. I was absolutely furious at Lady Sif. I don't know if this was the writer's interpretation of her character or if it was a unreliable narrator, like maybe Bill is taking this in a way that was not meant. I'm not sure.
I really like that interpretation, and I'm going to choose to believe that is accurate.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems a little harsh for her for some reason to me. I don't know. Anyway, moving on, Bill's heartbroken and he's like, I'm not me anymore. I don't have Stormbreaker. Lady Sif doesn't want me like this. I want to be Thor's equal. I'm not, and so he leaves Asgard.
And this is where the story becomes radically awesome. Because as he's leaving, who shows up but Scourge?
Oh my God.
And the bromance that I never knew I wanted came to fruition. And now I must have it from now on. So
Andy is going to play Scourge and Beta Ray Bill.
From now on, anytime I bring one, I'm bringing the other. Not Enchantress and Scourge, Beta Ray Bill and Scourge.
Even if it makes no sense
whatsoever.
He's doing it. Oh, I might talk him out of it sometimes. But
so basically, Scourge was in Valhalla. He mentioned that it gets very boring up there and there are no guns. So he goes into ethereal form and checks out what's happening on the mortal plane.
So he was watching.
He was going to watch them have, intercourse. And he's like, bro, I saw what happened and that was a major bummer. But we're going to find you somebody and I'm going to be your wingman and we're totally going to do this and it's going to be awesome.
Oh,
and
fun.
It was just the sheer wholesomeness of Scourge saying this. He's not saying this just because he wants to go on an adventure.
He does.
But he legitimately feels horrible for Beta Ray Bill and he wants to make Beta Ray Bill happy.
I know, it's just so good.
And the writing really leads you to believe this. So Pip, the troll, those of you who know who he is, ends up coming along. So they go looking for Odin, who everyone thought was dead, and Beta Ray Bill had no idea where he was going to find him until Scourge said, you know what, bro? I got your back. And he takes him to this bar. The bar scene is phenomenal, but that's not the fight that happens is not the point.
Also, I just have to say, Odin makes beer in the back.
Well, it's Odin who's at the bar, right? So yeah, he's in the back making beer.
He just comes out with like a keg of beer.
He's like, "What's up, guys?" I thought I told you to get rid of those bikers before.
But Odin tells Beta Ray Bill, I can't help you anymore. I don't have that power anymore, but I'll tell you if he also said something really sweet. He said, you shine from within. And
that's why I chose you in the first place.
Yeah, which I thought was awesome. But anyway, not enough for Beta Ray Bill. He's like, I want to look good. So
he said, I can't, he's not as powerful. He has no Odin power anymore. He could still probably whoop anybody's butt, but he's not God level power anymore.
So he sends Beta Ray Bill to find a sword called Twilight.
That is the sword of Surtur, the same Surtur who destroyed Beta Ray Planet in the first place. And it turns out when he destroyed that galaxy, it imbued Twilight with awesome power. And what Nikki and I did not realize at first, Twilight is the anti-Mjolnir.
Yeah, that's kind of what it sort of said, if you read the comic, if you interpret it like that. So it's not going to be Surtur is not worthy
to wield it anymore.
Of Twilight anymore. He can't pick it up. And he's like, if I beat you, I'll be worthy again. So they fight. A lot happens in between, but they
So
do
much
make
happens.
it. They make it to the this like the
Muspelheim is where it's all
yes,
taking place at.
and Scuttle. Oh, let's mention Scuttlebutt.
Scuttlebutt, right. Due to all the mystic energy that's been flying around, Scuttlebutt gets her own humanoid form. It's robot. I mean, she looks like a cyborg, but she has a form now outside of the ship, and there is actually a relationship that she feels affection for Beta Ray Bill.
I mean, I think she deeply cares for him, and that's something that you can see all these characters that are coming with him, even Odin, they all care about
They
him.
deeply care about him,
Yes,
and
and
they're all saying you don't need to do this to be awesome,
yes,
and we are here for you. We will be your best friends forever. And none of that's good enough for him in this right now.
right now he's focused.
He's too focused on it.
And so Scuttlebutt, she's awesome in this. I love it. So they fight
Surtur.
Surtur. Scuttlebutt kind of comes to the rescue.
Right, with one of the most epic scenes in, well, one of the, gosh, there's so many epic scenes. Surtur and Beta Ray Bill are fighting. Beta Ray Bill thought he just put a mortal wound on
Oh,
Surtur.
and the fight was amazing,
Yes.
by the way. The fight was amazing.
So he thought he had won, and Surtur's like, no, that was just a tickle. In the meantime, Scuttlebutt and Scourge are like, we need to help him, otherwise he will get killed. So you find out Scuttlebutt, she's done this earlier in the story. She can reconfigure the ship into different forms. She turns the ship into a giant gun and tells Scourge, you need to shoot him. Scourge looks so happy, he's crying.
He's got tears.
He
running
is
down
crying
his,
for
he's
joy.
so happy. Like, this is the best day of my life.
That's exactly it. So he shoots Surtur, which allows Beta Ray Bill to grab Twilight, and Bill now has Twilight. What that means for the future, we know that there is a story that takes place after this that doesn't really address the fact that now Beta Ray Bill is wielding the anti-Mjolnir.
Yeah, I was looking around, and in Thor, God of Hammers, which what I read was really good. I thought I was getting very interested in it, but it does show in issue 22, I believe, and there might be more issues that he's in. I don't know. He does have Twilight. But it doesn't have. He's sort of just a side note.
He side note, and then I think the other thing when this ends, he and Scuttlebutt are back on the ship, and they're sitting next to each other looking at Twilight kind of in a trophy rack behind glass, which kind of gives you the impression he's not going to always grab for it. And Scuttlebutt has her hand on his. And that's how it ends. It's a beautiful ending for an awesome story.
It's beautiful. It's also a little sad. It's kind of like he's not as satisfied as he thought he would be getting it. You know, he can turn back into his humanoid self, and he can, he's got a cool sword now and all this, but
he is probably definitely a match for Thor. Well, maybe.
No.
Well, actually, God of Hammer shows that he's not. But
yeah, no.
Anyway, he's very powerful, though.
He is very powerful. So, and I know there have been times that he was a match for Thor. So
absolutely.
But at that point, I don't think so.
So, folks, read this story. If there's any story, in our opinion, you should read this one.
So good.
So
good. It's like my favorite right now. Like,
absolutely.
Ever.
Right. I rank it up there with like World War Hulk as far as great stories.
We just thoroughly enjoy it. Because I was going to read it on my, we kind of split stuff up when there's a character that has a lot of content, I'm like, okay, you take this, I'll take this, whatever. And then we share, and I was like, Andy, you've got to read this. It's so good.
And it was. Like I said, I loved it. And to kind of wrap this up, again, we talked a lot about the stories that really we thought were important, but I liked how we also talked about Bill and what was so important about him as a character overall. And you mentioned to me, you were reading, this was from the Beta Ray Volume 1 series, that at the back of, I believe it was issue number 2, there was a person who wrote in, and this was referencing the scene where Lady Sif basically rejected him. He kind of rejected himself at that same moment. the gentleman wrote and said that he had had spinal surgery in the past, and the impression was it disfigured him quite a bit. The emotion that was drawn on Beta Ray Bill was the same emotion he felt, and
Mm-hmm.
it just really resonated with him. He thanked the author and the artist for doing that, for representing somebody like him. And I think that is the epitome of why people love Bill.
Yes, absolutely. Um, the Walt Simonson,
Hmm.
that was his name, that his creator had him like drew him to look scary because he wanted the person that was worthy, the next person after Thor that was worthy to pick up Mjolnir to be scary looking and not attractive looking. And people that were reading the comic were like, "What? Like this is a bad guy?" Because
Yeah.
he didn't look
He looks like
it.
a typical bad guy.
So what a surprise! He's not a bad guy at all. In fact, he's a very good guy.
He's got a
So
good soul and
hmm
just wants to do the right thing.
yeah, so absolutely, I love reading those. I'm kind of I don't know if you read those letters at the end of the comics, but I find them very interesting to see so many times it's those people that are writing in that it made a difference to them.
Hmm.
Um, when the story somehow was familiar to them and made them feel not alone, I guess.
Exactly. We saw that with like Miss Marvel. I remember a couple times we read somebody's comment, and it's like, "Thank you for representing me."
Hmm.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways to be represented.
Absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was the relationship between Beta Ray Bill and Scuttlebutt. And
Oh
it,
my gosh.
it 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 wasn't introduced obviously in this one. It's been there since the beginning, but it took a whole new level in this one.
Yes. So Scuttlebutt, because of the change, she, looked like a womanly robot, I guess.
Yeah.
And so there they are together, and it's awkward. It's like he doesn't really know how to interact with her in this form.
Right. You mentioned he looks like a monster, but the way the artist did it, the grimace on his face
Oh my
on
God.
Beta Ray's was
This
just perfect.
artist was so good. I loved him. But yeah, so she's like, all right, she acknowledged that things were awkward. And how are they going to get past that? Ping pong.
Ping pong. And that was a very cool scene.
It was a really neat scene. And we were also saying that this relationship between them almost got romantic.
Yeah, it seems like that's what it's touching on.
It does. I'm not sure if that's where I guess that's where they were going or if it's just a really deep friendship. I'm not sure.
I don't know, and I'm good with it either way.
Me too.
But again, this last story really ties up and puts a bow on why Bill is so loved. We've
Hmm.
said it plenty of times already, and I get it. I am now a Beta Ray Bill fan,
Yes, yes. For everyone who loves Beta Ray Bill, we understand now. We get it.
and I love it, love it, love it, love it when I read a comic and it changes my mind on something like this.
Yeah,
So
me too. I didn't really have a mind to change per se. I was going into it with a pretty open mind, but I absolutely I didn't know I was going to come out of it really enjoying it this much.
So, the trilogy we explained, we consider to be a good starting foundation for learning a lot about Beta Ray Bill.
Yeah, I think that those three really give a good idea of who Bill is as a character, kind of after he left Asgard.
Right. It really made him less the sidekick of Thor, though I know he technically never was, and really started to flesh out his character.
It did, but Bill had a lot of adventures besides this. There's a lot of content out there.
Right. So, there's the Death of the Inhuman series, there is the Guardians of the Galaxy Thanos Imperative,
Yeah, he was with the Annihilators.
and I keep on wanting to say Starjammers, they're the Star Masters.
Well, yesterday I said the Stargazers. And
Stargazers.
you were like, what? which is basically just characters that we already knew. They and the Annihilators, that, very powerful kind of.
Gladiator from
Yes.
the Dark Phoenix and Silver Surfer, those people.
Also,
Quasar, I believe, as well.
Also Omega Flight.
Omega Flight, and then there's the Unworthy Thor series.
Yeah, there's a lot. Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion. So
just, lots of stuff out there to get into.
Right, and especially stuff within the last 20 years that, are more canon to who he is today. So we really encourage everyone to not only read through our recommendation of the trilogy series, our quote-unquote unofficial trilogy series.
That we have decided is a trilogy.
But if you want to learn more and see why everyone loves him so much, there's plenty of other great content out there.
And I would like to know, your experience with Bill, viewers. Like,
yeah, tell us.
And if you have a different opinion on what we've said, we'd love to hear it.
Or is there another essential storyline that we missed that you would consider to be one that we need to read about Beta Ray Bill?
Yes.
All right. So with that, why don't we talk a little bit about how Beta Ray Bill transfers into the game itself?
Let's do it.
So one of the coolest things when you know about a character, or in our case, having just read through the character and then looking at their character card, you start to see the kind of little Easter egg names that they have on there.
I love this. It's so good. Stormbreaker, that's his, builder. I mean, that's his hammer, yeah.
God Hunter.
God Hunter. We just were, talking about that's such a good comic to read. It's so good.
And it's very fitting. The way this ability works, where it's based off the size of the person you're attacking.
Yeah.
He is designed to go after big characters. Hulk, Sentinel, Dormammu. That's who he wants to go after because that's who his character is.
His character doesn't care how big and strong and unlikely he's going to win.
If he'll even live through the encounter.
He doesn't care. He just does it.
And that's what I love about this card. It does a really good job of just getting the essence of Beta Ray Bill.
And I just, the attack summon the storm. I mean, seriously. I love it. Look at that. Range 4.
Strength 6, yeah. With a reroll against flyers. And there are plenty of flyers in this game now.
I absolutely adore that. And then God Hunter, also a good attack.
That has potential to throw if you're lucky. And if you're going after a bigger guy, or bigger person, I should say, chances are you're going to maybe roll a crit, a wild, and a hit.
Another thing that really stood out to me was the cybernetics. The Corbinite cybernetics. The fact that there's no minimum of 1 to reduce the damage. He does have to pay a power, which kind of balances it, because otherwise
it would just be 2.
I don't know if he would just be a cost 4 character. But
how many times in the comics did we see him lose limbs literally to the person he's fighting, and he's like, I can do this all day. He basically steals Captain America's line right there.
And then I love how they've got the aggressive move is called Honor Bound. Because he's honorable and he's not going to back down from a fight.
And the more you hit him, the more he's just determined to take out the bad guy.
Yes.
It is quote-unquote bad guy.
Absolutely. And finally, what I want to say about this character card, immune to incinerate. Yes, please.
That's so mean. I mean, I kind of understand why.
Also bleed and poison, but that incinerate really stands out.
That's so mean. That really makes him a lot more combat effective. I mean, he could be shocked, thank goodness, but the fact that it's going to be harder to reduce his defenses makes him, I think, a fairly sturdy character. He can reduce the damage as well. So, I mean, thank goodness he can't heal. If he could do that, holy goodness, definitely would not be a 4 cost anymore.
All right. So, and another thing we were talking about earlier, Andy, when we were talking about, who we're going to play him and who we're going to play him, I really want to play him with Guardians. That just seems, yes.
I just want to have a buddy cop adventure with him and Scourge. That's all I care about. I don't care who I play him with. And you know that I don't care generally when I do stuff like that, who I play them with. I do unaffiliated all the time.
And you do. You like coming up with those teams that just that you would want to make yourself.
In my mind, what would be the cool team? Exactly. And that's what I love about this game. You can still do very well with a team like that. Does it hurt a little bit when you don't get an affiliation bonus? Yeah. Can you win without an affiliation bonus? Yeah, you can still do the same. And to me, it's just about having fun. It's living out, again, my little childhood, dreams, fantasies, whatever you want to call them, and having read through volume one and seeing how he and Scourge interacted with each other, that's what I want to replay in my head. I want more of those adventures, and since I can't wait for someone to write them, I'm going to make them myself.
Yeah, and with Scourge, you don't have to be out of affiliation. So, or he's in Guardians too, right?
Scourge is not.
I mean, I'm talking about Bill.
Oh, Bill, yeah. Bill's a Guardians.
So Guardians and Asgard. So yeah. Ooh, he and Angela both like going against big people.
That would be fun. We're going to have to do one of those games where it obviously will be a 20-point game.
It's going to be a lot of points, yeah.
I mean, you're probably only going to have 4 people because then you have to include Thor in that list as well. No, they're both Guardians. Angela and Beta Ray are both Guardians. So, yeah, you could easily do a 20-point game with those two.
Yeah.
Because then, 13 for Star-Lord, and then, that gives you 7 more points to play around with.
Well, there's possibilities are endless, Andy.
The
possibilities are endless. But, yeah, I love the idea of playing him with the Guardians because you know how I love my Guardians.
You do love your Guardians, and they're very good to play too right now. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to try to figure out where we can fit him into games because I think he fits in well. But there's also I'm thinking now I'm going to have to put together like an Avengers maybe-esque list where he needs to play with Captain America. That's I guess what I'm getting at. Maybe a super honorable base team.
All the honorable people out there all together.
And then you're definitely gonna have to play a bunch of bad guys. So
because like the heroes always have a lot of they're sacrificing, right? So all those people that never think about themselves, like Captain America, Beta Ray Bill.
That's a thematic list I'm gonna have to play in the future.
Yes.
That's what I love about this game. You can totally do that. I love the fact that we've got a team tactic card as well. That puts him. It doesn't rely on the fact that they have to be an affiliation. It's just him or Scourge. But again, as I just stated, they will be together all the time.
Let's look at those team tactic cards.
All right. So the team tactic cards, there are 2 that are fitting with Beta Ray Bill, basically. Mm-hmm. The Brothers in Arms and Scuttlebutt on Me. I stated, first of all, Scuttlebutt on Me, I adore the fact that this is in the game. When I first read this, I basically stood up, fist pumped, and touchdown. And
you sent it to me right away. I don't remember. I wasn't with you at the time.
No, I came out of the room. I was looking for you. I'm like, look what they did. This is so awesome.
Yes, and like I was saying, Scuttlebutt on Me, when I look at it, and it's like how much power you put into it, that always scares me a little bit. I'm always like, ooh, I don't know.
It's a bit of a trap.
Yeah, sometimes.
It can be, I should say.
Definitely a good card. Definitely for you fun to play. With me, it just gives me anxiety.
Right.
But Brothers in Arms, when I first, let me read it. You read it because I can't see it.
Thor Odinson and Beta Ray Bill may spend 1 power each to play this card. While within 2 of each other this round, the character that played this card gained the superpower shown below, which is the Worthy. This character may not be advanced, thrown, or placed by enemy effects. Additionally, this character adds 3 dice to all energy attacks it makes. So it's like a way better version of not to the end of the line.
Yeah, that's it.
To the end, yeah, the Captain America. Which
it's not very similar at all after you read the whole thing. But
it's a much better
when
version.
we first started reading it, I was like, this is going to be till the end of the line. But no, it's not. It's way better. It's
now I want to see till
awesome.
the end of the line just like this card. They need to redo it because I want to see Bucky and Captain America replay the end of Civil War where they're fighting Iron Man together like that. Oh, that would be so awesome. Anyways.
Yes, but Brothers in Arms, I like that card. And you with your Scuttlebutt on Me, that also seems really, really fun. And from the comic that we both adore.
Yeah. So all in all, there's lots of fun to be had with Beta Ray Bill. I'm again, I was like, when I first saw him, I'm like, Yeah, they were going to have to do him eventually, so I guess it's time. But now that I've read through him, yeah, please, may I have another?
Yes, I didn't have much of opinion on him when I went into this. I just didn't really know who he was. But now I'm like, I love him. I love him. So really looking forward to this.
And I'm thinking, based off these cards too, not these two specific, but Rock Control. It looks like Lady Sif may be coming to the game in the future. We know that Jane Foster Thor will be coming eventually.
Oh my god, I
So
cannot wait.
hopefully
for Jane.
that'll be a pack, yeah.
Yes, Jane Foster Thor. I'm here for it.
I hope there's like a card for Lady Sif and Beta Ray Bill that's like, oh.
Oh no! Or she rejects him.
Rejected.
Oh, that was so
or maybe that's
sad.
like an animosity for both of them. I don't know. That would not be cool, but it would be hilarious if they did. But anyways, I would love to see both of them in the
Bill
game.
and Civ have a long friendship, so hopefully they will get back on track.
Yeah. So
If they haven't already, because I haven't read all the newest ones.
yeah, there evidently is some new adventures. We're gonna have to go looking for them.
Yeah.
So with that, that was fun. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed reading the lore. I enjoyed the tactics. Any final thoughts on Beta Ray Bill?
Gosh, just that yeah, let's do this. I can't wait for you to paint them up and
Well, we need to hurry up and get him. That's
we
the
need to
big
get
show.
them. We need to get them.
Look for Beta Ray Bill coming soon. He releases probably in the next 2 weeks from when this video comes out. And we will definitely have him on the table with Scourge eventually. I don't know who's going to be playing him first, but
I think we decided you were gonna. You can't wait for that.
I
so,
can't wait for
yeah.
Bill and Scourge. So we'll definitely be seeing that soon. So until then, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.